Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time we've got the pleasure of watching Wookiee Hunter from the North American server playing in his Tier 10 German tank destroyer, the Jagdpanzer E-100. And you know what, since this vehicle was put into the game in August 2012, it has been a fan favourite, at least on my Twitch channel, and it's also a go-to tank of mine when you just simply had enough of all of the crap that World of Tanks can throw at you, and you just want to put some big old holes in your opponent. And apart from the FV215B183 and the FV4005 Stage 2, nothing quite puts big holes in your opponents, I guess, apart from self-propelled guns like the Jagdpanzer E-100 can. 170mm main armament, 1050 average damage, and also 299mm of penetration. And when you're not putting big holes in your opponents, you're probably ricocheting them. And that's because this vehicle has some rather thick armor. I believe it has 150 on the lower plate, 200mm on the upper plate. Effectively, if you're not angling this tank and you're engaging your opponents from the front, then it still has 220mm of unangled effective armor, and the upper plate is 360, which is absolutely gigantic. Even the premium rounds on many tanks are unable to be able to get through the upper plate of the Jagdpanzer E-100. And it's only really Tier 10 tank destroyers or possibly high penetration AP rounds from enemy artillery that are likely to be able to start to challenge that part of your armor. And yeah, I think we see why this 170mm is a bit of a stress relief there, killing the Tier 7 French light tank on the enemy team with a single shot. And when you've got that kind of alpha damage, that kind of impact, you certainly can take the eyes away from your opponents quickly. And killing light tanks on Prokhorovka is super important. Every minute that those light tanks are working those ridge lines, they're generally clocking up, I'd say at least 500 to 1,000 spotting damage. So if you allow that to happen too much, then you're going to be losing possibly a third of a tank, maybe half a tank even, every minute that the light tank is alive. And if you let that go on for too long, then it can provide a sizable advantage to the enemy team. And talking about sizable advantages, it doesn't look like these players have had a very good game, dying in the first 2.5 minutes. Looks like Wookiee Hunter is certainly going to have his work cut out for him. Luckily, he's surrounded by two other German tank destroyers, a Griller 15 on his right, and also a Jagdtiger that will grow up to be just like me. When you think about it, that Jagdtiger, 2,100 hit points, I still can't get over that. I think I talk about that far too much in my videos. But the fact that that tank still has 2,100 hit points, when the Jagdpanzer E-100 looks far more sizable with 2,200 hit points, it's just a bit bizarre really when we think about it. But I guess the Jagdtiger did need that buff. Anyway, Wookiee Hunter spots a Tier 8 American turreted tank destroyer in the distance, the T-28. Will he one-shot him? Pretty much. That T-28 prototype reduced to 25 hit points, with Wookiee Hunter doing 1,125 to him. He takes a look to the right to take a look to see what that Griller is going to be doing, and apart from the shot that the Griller put in, it doesn't look like he's going to be surviving much longer. When spotted, the Griller wilts under pressure, unlike the Jagdpanzer E-100. 965 damage done there to the side of the T-125, and yep, that Griller certainly did wilt. It was a T-62A on the enemy team who shuts him down, while a T-92 on the enemy team also seems to be taking heads as he kills a T-125 on the other flank. So the Jagdpanzer E-100, while it does have that big old impact, has a hefty reload. This vehicle fires 2 1/3 rounds a minute. It has one of the lowest DPMs of any of the Tier 10 tank destroyers. I think the only Tier 10 tank destroyer with lower DPM that I know of will be the FV215B183, and maybe also the 4005, but those two, they're practically the same tank apart from a little bit of mobility differences. But I'm not actually 100% certain whether this tank has a better rate of fire than the Foch. Will he hit the top of it? Yes, he will. There we go. 989 damage done to the T-125, but the T-123 on the enemy team with a high penetration gun looks like he's put one right through the lower plate. Yep, right on the beak, taking out Wookiee Hunter's engine as well. Will Wookiee Hunter use his repair kit? Your repair kit is so important in a Jagdpanzer E-100. When you've used your repair kit, there's usually no more opportunities to be able to stop an opponent from flanking you. Some great angling there. He bounces a T-123 shell, and I love what he does here. kills the TVP underneath the wreck of the dead Jagdtiger, and that was so important there. If he'd fired at the T10 E-100, he would have basically been able to do another 1,000 damage this game and said, okay, I'm happy with 5,000 damage done, as many people would be, but then the TVP would get his flank and undoubtedly kill him. Good focused fire, stopping the medium tank that is likely to flank him. And now he's using the armor of the Jagdpanzer E-100 to avoid most of the damage from this T10 E-100. But unfortunately, one of the tanks he can't avoid damage from, or should I say self-propelled guns on the enemy team, that T92 taking away a lot of his hit points, now reducing him to 164. I believe that is the third round in a row that Wookiee Hunter has bounced from that T10 E-100. And remember, that T10 E-100 has got pretty much 300mm of penetration. If he's not using the APCR rounds with 375mm of penetration, Wookiee Hunter puts his second round into the tank, finishing him off. I am pretty sure he might have been able to use one of his high explosive rounds there on the T10 E-100 just to secure the kill there. Sometimes your AP rounds can deviate a little bit, and he probably could have splashed anywhere near that T10 E-100 to be able to take him out. So, now facing a 1 versus 6 situation. The Jagdpanzer E-100 is not very flexible, and so it requires some tactics if you want to try and get through these kind of situations. He fires at the T-62A, shutting down the first tank, bounces a T-10 to his left, avoids an artillery shell, and a T-49 fails to do any damage, I believe, with a high explosive round there, because it said 910. If it'd been firing heat, we would have heard a sizzle, and it would have said 700. So the 910 means that the high explosive round just did absolutely nothing to his armor. Kablam! 838 damage done there to the T-49, changing his 1 versus 6 now into a 1 versus 4. Great result. Oh no, the T-10's coming up over the ridgeline, and he's not quite done reloading. Will he find the lower plate? The T-10 whiffs his shell into the ridge and is aiming at him. And you know what? This is one of my favorite bits of this replay. The T-10 wiggles his turret like he was saying no! When I saw this for the first time, it cracked me up, and it still does now. Oh, the T-92 splashing near Wookiee Hunter's tracks there, unable to do any damage, and this is where the Jagdpanzer is just so robust. Fair enough if they get easy shots into your lower plate or into your side armor, you're not really going to be avoiding, but when you're angling, when you're defending, when the artillery aren't hitting you directly, this tank just absorbs a great punishment. But oh my word, that T-10 wiggling his turret is in. Hey, please no. Please no. Don't do it. Oh, it's got to be one of my favorite moments, I think, from any of my videos this year. Oh, man. Okay, so Wookiee Hunter, 6 kills, 7,841 damage that we've seen him deal. And now he's spotted the T-34. 229 hit points. I would thoroughly recommend starting to use high explosive rounds against this tank if the first AP round doesn't hit. And this is so unbelievably dangerous for him. Every time he gets spotted, he has to feel that the T-92 has about a 50-50 whether he's going to be able to kill him or not if he's got any kind of good marksmanship. There we go. We see some more yellow damage done to his tracks. And I guess Wookiee Hunter survives another 50-50 to be able to get stuck into this game. Now, he's not reloading a high explosive round here, because I guess there's a T10 E-5 on the enemy team who was last spotted near the enemy base. So maybe he needs that AP round to start to punish the E-5, and reloading a high explosive round that would be useless against the E-5 might not be useful. So he pushes forwards into the bush. Will he spot the T-34? Yes, he does. Will he try and snap the shot? He snaps the shot, unable to get back behind the bush, but he doesn't actually get spotted there. That's a little bit of a consolation prize for the fact that he didn't manage to shut down the Tier 8 American premium heavy tank on the enemy team with a shot to the tracks. You'd think that 170mm of caliber gun with 299mm of penetration would have killed the T-34 there, but not quite hitting the hull, and the tracks will not do in this vehicle. And this is where obviously the Jagdpanzer E-100 does feel a little bit awkward. When you don't need that big old 1050 alpha damage, then yeah, it just feels a little bit awkward. However, we can now see the Wookiee Hunter is thinking a lot like how I would be in this situation. He's reloaded an AP round, but it looks like he's dabbed his high explosive round key once, and he does it again, reloading a high explosive round because I guess he's figured out that he can splash anywhere on the T-34. And if he spots the T-92, a high explosive round pretty much anywhere on the T-92 or even near it is going to be able to take him out. And if he does see a T-10 E-5, well, he can start to weather him down because to all intents and purposes he's probably got about 2,200 hit points I don't know if anyone's damaged him. He could also be AFK, I guess. We'll have to see later on in this replay. But what would you be doing right now? Obviously, he wants to try and hunt down this T-34, but he's also got to be afraid of the T-10 E-100 coming up down the flank, surely. So let's talk a bit more about the Jagdpanzer E-100's armor, so you can avoid letting somebody like Wookiee Hunter just waltz all over your team and deal 7,800 damage. So, on the upper superstructure of this tank, we've already talked about the lower plate. The upper superstructure of this tank, it's got 250 millimeters outside these rivets. Do not shoot anywhere on these rivets because I think it's got 300 millimeters of armor. And when the tank isn't angling, it's 330 millimeters of effective armor. If you shoot the cheeks here, it's got 250 millimeters raw armor, which goes up to about 270 when it's not angling at all. And so that probably means that you're going to need heat rounds or high penetration APCR rounds, about 275 to have a 50-50 to get through the cheeks of the Jagdpanzer E-100. And what that also means is that when you're driving the Jagdpanzer E-100, you should try and make all attempts to be able to angle the cheeks to stop your opponents from being able to pen them. That's got to be a good feeling, taking out the RNG from the game, at least the RNG that might stop Wookiee Hunter from being able to win it. The T-92 killed with a high explosive round, and now reloading another one for the T-34, who is not pressuring his base anymore. The T-34 spotted out in the open. He's nearly got the round in. Will he hit the lower plate? The T-34 misses. Don't choke, Wookiee. A great shot there. That hits the mantlet of the T-34. I'm pretty sure if that was an AP round that it would have ricocheted or been absorbed, but the high explosive round of this tank, enough to be able to take out that very low health Tier 8 American heavy tank. And I take a lot of high explosive rounds in this vehicle. I think Wookiee takes 4, or maybe he's fired a couple more than that for all I know. I think I take up to about 7 in this tank because I do like splashing at long range, and it's very unusual that you need all of your ammunition to be able to take out your opponents. Unfortunately, the T-10 E-5 at the end of the game here, it's a bit of a letdown. He's AFK. And that means that Wookiee Hunter has really only had to deal with a 1 versus 5 situation here. But at least he did have to have his 1 versus 6, killing 5 opponents in the row. And now he'll have to deal with the AFK T-10 E-5. And so there's no doubt that this is still a true Kolovanov's. Interestingly enough, he keeps his distance from the T-10 E-5, and I think that's rather sensible. What happens if the T-10 E-5 comes back from being AFK? What happens if the T-10 E-5 is a bot? But Wookiee Hunter doesn't have any time to be able to pull back and use any bushes, and he's going to put in the final round of the game, securing his 9,693 damage that we saw and 9 kills. What an absolute stonking replay for the Jagdpanzer E-100. So while the final T-10 E-5 being AFK certainly was a little bit of a disappointment for me, there were still so many awesome moments in this replay that I just wanted to feature it, especially that T-10 wiggling his turret as if to say, no, 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 please don't kill me. But Wookiee Hunter was certainly ruthless and skilled with his takedown of the enemy team. So I just want to finish the video by giving you a couple of tips and tricks as to how to take down the Jagdpanzer E-100. And number 1, the cupola on top is visible even when the Jagdpanzer E-100 can't shoot you. This has got 160 millimeters of armor, and so you should be able to take advantage of that from all angles. Next up, watch out for the spaced armor on the side of the Jagdpanzer E-100. People seem to underestimate the fact that this plate along here that you can see is 60 millimeters of spaced armor, and that protects the whole of the side of the tank, which is 120 millimeters thick. And also be careful because the tracks count as 40 millimeters of spaced armor as well, and so if you get a shot like this, definitely try and hit on the inside here. And be careful if you're shooting alongside the Jagdpanzer E-100 and you shoot around this location, not only do you have to get through 60 millimeters of this part of the spaced armor, 40 millimeters of the tracked spaced armor, and then 120 millimeters of the raw armor behind that, which certainly can make the sides of the Jagdpanzer E-100 feel insurmountable. And you're probably best to shoot the upper superstructure here, but also be warned, while this part of the tank has 120 millimeters of side armor, the upper superstructure here has 150. So what around here for Wookiee Hunter, an ace tanker for his Jagdpanzer E-100, unsurprising, for 1,440 base experience points. I think you can almost get an ace in this tank for doing just over 1,000. He also picks up a Radley Walters medal for his 9 kills, a Kolovanov's medal, the one that everybody wants for standing alone against at least 5 opponents. He also got a Spartan medal for ricocheting with less than 10% of his hit points, and a high caliber for the 10,770 damage that he dealt. Although I think quite a lot of that was against this AFK T10 at the end of the game. But even with that taken away, it was still 8,500, which was a simply awesome achievement. So Wookiee Hunter, congratulations to you, and thank you so much for uploading this on the What Replays website for the community to enjoy. I certainly did myself. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. It really helps the channel out. And click the more info icon in the top right hand corner of your screen if you want to see another monstrous Jagdpanzer E-100 replay with a truly hilarious and dramatic ending. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.